Well, let's start the show with the hazardous weather graphic here. And we've got a winter storm watch out for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast that goes into effect Wednesday night, actually Wednesday evening, and continues through Thursday for possible heavy snow and blowing snow as a low pressure area tracks eastward here. And by late afternoon sets up over the Kenzie River Bay area, and higher pressure builds out here to the west. So that'll create a pretty good gradient there, possibly winds gusting 35 to 45 miles an hour. Could result in blizzard conditions with visibilities down to a quarter mile or less, or even whiteout conditions. Just a possibility at this point in time. Otherwise, that's about it around the state. So moving on to satellite imagery. Still, we've got moisture flowing from south to north, but you can see the band is pushed inland a little bit here, kind of squirming its way through the upper level ridge, really falling apart. In fact, it's pretty washed out here and breaks apart completely here over Bristol Bay. Still some areas of light rain, kind of a warm front right through here now, and kind of stationary, and you can see actually backing a little back to the west there. So some light rain here for the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians. Good clearing here, Kodiak Island right up into the western Alaska Range, south central Alaska. In fact, the shading here, some areas rising into the 40s and even lower 50s here over the Kenai Peninsula up into the Susitna Valley area, North Gulf Coast. Seward, 52 degrees this afternoon, and mild temperatures right up into the Tanana Valley. The mildest temperatures occurring at the higher elevations due to the warm air aloft with the upper level ridge. And a lot of clear skies here over the Panhandle. Some clouds early on, in fact, kind of lingering down here over the southern areas, but nothing serious. And this area of clouds, mostly just mid and high level moisture, and again, really washed out. And then there's kind of a developing cold front right through here, west of the Pribilofs, staying west into the mid-afternoon. St. Paul Island reporting clear skies with light winds and temperature around 40 degrees. So some breaks all the way down to Unimak Island here, and again into eastern Bristol Bay. Rolling this through again, really no big storms out here to the west. Some higher clouds with a weak system coming into the Komodorskis, and that's about it. No big storms on the horizon out there. And just a couple of weak troughs today out in this area here with some light and scattered snow showers there, mostly north or south of the western Aleutians. Then this area of possible light rain or areas of light precipitation in the form of rain over the Alaska Peninsula, possibly up into the Togiak Bay area there. But good sunshine here, blazing sunshine today over south central Alaska from the western Alaska Range areas, Kodiak Island, and covering much of the Copper River Basin, Prince William Sound up into the interior here, and even up to the eastern central Brooks Range area. And then areas of light precipitation, snow or snow and rain mixed here along the northwest coast down into the Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, and then trailing back, kind of a little more, looks wetter than it actually is. It's a very weak front, but in a developing stage, more or less, with upper level disturbance out here. It's going to be, again, wiggling its way east-northeast over the top of the high that's centered down to the south here, aloft that is. We have a weak low in the western Gulf of Alaska with not much weather, with no weather associated with it actually there, and some possible light snow shower conditions here over the extreme eastern Alaska range, but that's about it. Dry for the Panhandle, pick up some clouds down to the south. And for tonight, this cold front pushes inland and might pick up enough moisture for some areas of light snow, mixed precipitation down here on the southwest coast. Possible areas of light snow up through the Seward Peninsula to the northwest coast there into the Noatak Valley. Western Brooks Range, but amounts will be light. And just a threat of some snow showers with this original band of moisture coming in. It could be hold together enough to kick off the possibility of a scattered snow shower or two from the Koyukuk Valley down into the mid-Yukon River Valley areas. But east and south stays dry, even Bristol Bay, dry conditions, Kodiak Island dry. Light winds, virtually no gradient here across southern or interior Alaska, but tight gradient here for the northern panhandle of this strong 1,053 millibar high building into the Northwest Territories there, and then the low to the south. Pretty good gradient develops. That's pretty good outflow winds here developing for the areas, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay area, maybe into the central interior areas there. Inside waters, but out to the west, high pressure, light winds, Aleutians, very light variable winds tonight there for these central Aleutians, and light northeast winds or east-northeast winds, maybe 10 to 20 miles an hour there for the Fox Islands. And then for tomorrow, that warm front kind of edges westward a little bit there, keeps a chance of rain going from, say, Cold Bay and False Pass across the eastern Aleutians on Alaska and Nikolsky, periods of light rain and drizzle, fog type conditions. The weather associated with a warm front there, but staying to the east of Adak and Atka. High pressure is starting to build here and strengthen over the northern Bering Sea. That's going to help nudge this disturbance inland. And there should be an area of light snow associated with this weak cold front coming eastward into the central interior tomorrow, possibly trailing down into the northern Kuskokwim Valley. McGrath and Nikolai could see a chance of some light snow as the trailing edge of that cold front moves through, and then some snow showers back to the west a little bit, but drying out along the west coast late tomorrow. And this system really not doing much, staying to the northwest of the Shimei-Attu area. And now over the panhandle, less of a gradient, so winds that come up tonight will be diminishing during the day tomorrow. Should stay mostly sunny again for south central Alaska, east and south of the Alaska Range, partly and mostly sunny in the Copper River Basin. Even the North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, once again, increasing clouds north of the Alaska Range over the upper Tanana Valley and 40-mile country. And it's this low center here that on Thursday actually dissipates, but the gradient behind that will be overnight Thursday or Wednesday night into early Thursday. You could see the blizzard conditions there, but that'll be followed by very strong high pressure building in over the north slope, another strong center over the northern Bering Sea, and snow will be ending from west to east here, and this area here will be early in the morning. By afternoon, that'll be considerably off to the east, but still covering the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country there, about Eagle or Old Crow down into the eastern Alaska Range area, but that's about it. And it shouldn't be anything on the heavy side at all. Clearing skies once again, and back to maximum sunshine, south central Alaska, Kodiak Island, all of the western and central interior, especially in the afternoon. And the panhandle, some variable clouds up over the northern areas, mostly sunny down to the south. Light winds now for the southeast coast. And this warm front finally making a nudge to the east there, drying it out over the eastern Aleutians. Look for some clearing over the Alaska Peninsula up to the Pribilofs, really over the Bering Sea. Pretty good conditions. This is zone of light rain associated with that warm front. And for lows tonight, not too bad in the 20s for the Kuskokwim Valley, Bristol Bay, south central Alaska, staying above zero in the Copper River Basin. Cold here for the northern panhandle, 10 to 15 below, right around 10 to or in the teens, the entire stretch of the panhandle there. Highs tomorrow in the 20s, lower to mid-30s to the south. And again, 30s to near 40s, south central Alaska, some areas into lower 40s. And for the lows the following morning, in the teens to lower 20s here, southern Alaska, Bristol Bay, staying above freezing for Kodiak Island. 5 to 10 or 0 to 10 for the northern panhandle, and 15 to 20 to the south, followed by highs mid to upper 20s to upper 30s, southern panhandle. Highs again near 40 in the Susitna Valley, otherwise 30s, 35 to 42, call it, and a little cooler in the Kuskokwim Valley. And then not bad tonight, everyone above zero over the northern central interior. Highs 20s to lower 30s central interior, mid-20s on the Arctic coast, cooler out over the Bering Strait. And then lows getting a little colder now with the high pressure building in back below zero, 5 to 10 below in the northwest areas, and in the teens here to the south, followed by highs in the 20s for the Noaa Valley, and staying around 0 for the central Arctic coast and the teens of the Bering Strait. And the southwest coast tonight, lows teens 20s, otherwise 30s, mid-20s to mid-30s elsewhere. And that'll be followed by highs in the 20s for the southwest coast, about 30 for St. Paul tomorrow, 30s to near 40 for the remainder of the Aleutians. And then colder temperatures Thursday morning, and highs upper 30s to near 40 for Thursday afternoon. Call it about 30 for St. Paul and St. George Islands.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Upper level disturbance finally breaking into the the upper level ridge. We'll see an advance eastward of the IFR by Wednesday morning, right into the Koyukuk Valley, extending down to the Kuskokwim Valley, actually the bay there, and then out into the Bering Strait, into the western Arctic coast, staying VFR for the central eastern north slope, down the east side and south and east of the Alaska Range, still VFR tonight, and some IFR around Kodiak Island and the Alaska Peninsula, otherwise just marginal conditions for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. On the other hand, the southeast coast here, eastern North Gulf Coast, all of the North Gulf Coast, stay VFR. Then for tomorrow, we've got some IFR now sliding up into Prince William Sound in the afternoon. Narrow band of IFR here hanging up along the western Alaska Range, a little more widespread now over the north central interior to the eastern Arctic coast, becoming VFR out along the west coast and the northern Bering Sea as well. Good VFR flying there, right down Nunivak Island into Togiak Bay, and IFR back toward the eastern Aleutians, mostly on the south side of the Alaska Peninsula. Stays VFR for the Panhandle in the southeast interior. And for Thursday morning, with that upper disturbance sliding eastward, it's going to carry the IFR with it, being replaced by VFR out here toward the west coast, IFR, central eastern Arctic coast, and IFR shifting off to the southeast here. So improving conditions for Kodiak Island Thursday morning, staying VFR for the Panhandle. And then for the afternoon, solid IFR again, high pressure building in pretty strongly here up over the northern Bering Sea and into the northwest interior as moisture pulls off to the east, but still in the afternoon, IFR over toward the eastern border from the eastern Arctic coast. Also down around Yakutat in toward Glacier Bay there, but for the most part, the southeast coast stays VFR, Kodiak Island, southwest coast, northern Bering Sea. Just some scattered areas of IFR over the Aleutians, along with marginal conditions. Passes Anatuvik, IFR tomorrow. Same forecast for Adigan. Most of Brooks Range, especially the central Brooks Range, will be IFR as conditions deteriorate from west to east. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, becoming marginal VFR tomorrow and through the afternoon. Rainy, marginal VFR. Windy, VFR trending toward marginal VFR in the afternoon hours, but Isabel should stay VFR, as well as Mentasta will be VFR. Tanita, VFR tomorrow, and Portage definitely VFR flying either approach there. And for Chilkoot and White, good VFR once again. And moving on to the freezing level chart here, upper level ridge right over the central interior tomorrow morning, and with that, very high freezing levels, 8,000 feet here, right up to Denali Park area, and then southward to Kodiak Island. You can see 2,000 feet all the way up there off the chart there into the Arctic Ocean, along with 4,000 feet. And then cooler air back here over to the west at the surface just north of Adak and Atka, and also cooler conditions here over the Panhandle all the way down to the Queen Charlottes. And from there, icing. With the moisture coming in, areas of light to isolated moderate rime icing, freezing level to 12,000 feet, give or take there here, moving from west to east here into the interior areas, and an elevated chance of some possible icing also for the eastern Aleutians, the light variety there into the western Alaska Peninsula, but not too significant. This area would be more significant, otherwise icing free everywhere else. Jet stream, westerly flow, west-southwest, 115 knots. You can see breaking through the northern portion of this high that's centered now south of Kodiak Island, and about 70 knots over the over the Seward Peninsula. Still good northerly flow here coming down with due to this upper level low dropping southward. So 110 knots right across the central southeast coast out of the north and northeast. And for 9,000 feet, about 45 knots right over Yakutat, lighter over the Panhandle itself, and west-southwest up to 50 knots in the central interior. Also northeast Bristol Bay. Here's high pressure building in back over the northern Bering Sea. And for 3,000 feet, high pressure extending from the western Aleutians right on up into the northern Bering Sea. Not too bad here. Westerlies 20 to 30 knots in the central interior, and easterlies at about 30 knots here for the Alaska Peninsula. And a little breezy over the northern Panhandle, but not too bad. And that relates to just some light to isolated moderate mechanical chop there for the Panhandle and maybe over the central interior. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the ice edge and the marine forecasts.
On March 11, 2011, a powerful tsunami hit Japan, destroying cities and villages. As the water receded back into the ocean, it pulled what remained of buildings, cars, boats, and homes along with it. Scrap metals, plastics, and objects of all shapes and sizes either sank near the shore or floated away. In the days that followed, large masses of floating debris could easily be seen by satellite imagery and aerial photos. In the wake of this disaster, NOAA is assessing the potential impact that the debris may have on U.S. shores. So, where will this debris go, and when will it get there? To help answer those questions, scientists are using computer models to estimate the debris' path, using its starting location in the tsunami zone and historical weather and ocean conditions. The findings are that some debris could pass near or wash ashore in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands as early as this winter. Debris may also approach the west coast of the United States in 2013 and potentially circle back to the main Hawaiian Islands in 2014. But scientists caution that there are limitations to what computer models can tell us, now that the debris has moved out of satellite view. And with currents and winds in the Pacific constantly changing, there is no guarantee that the debris will stay on the predicted path. Items will sink along the way, or break up and disperse in many directions. Despite these unknowns, NOAA and its partners are collecting data, assessing possible impacts, and making preparations in case debris does wash ashore. The 2011 tsunami in Japan reminds us that the devastation that happens on land can also become a marine debris issue at sea.
Imagine all of this underwater. In a major tsunami, it could happen. In this part of Washington state, it's happened before, hundreds of years ago. Sometime in the future, it will likely happen again. But we can be ready. If a tsunami strikes, this school will provide a place for people to ride it out above the waves.
We're in Westport, Washington, and right behind me is the very first tsunami vertical evacuation center in the United States. We will now begin the tsunami evacuation.
This is an emergency. Please run to the nearest exit.
Let's go.
Go to the stair tower and proceed up the stairs.
Tsunamis are a potential hazard for low-lying coastal areas. That's why many coastal communities have plans in place to get people to safety, high ground or inland, where they can be beyond the reach of a tsunami. Often there are signs showing where to go and where to gather. Most tsunamis are caused by underwater earthquakes along subduction zones, where two of Earth's plates collide and one is forced under the other. Westport and other Pacific Northwest coastal communities are especially at risk because one of these zones lies just offshore. It's called the Cascadia Subduction Zone. An earthquake here caused a tsunami in 1700 that flooded shores as far away as Japan. Experts say it's just a matter of time before it happens again. Since the subduction zone is so close, a tsunami like the one in 1700 could strike before people in some low-lying areas could get to high ground or inland. And Westport doesn't have a lot of high ground or easy routes inland.
If we get an earthquake or a tsunami, we're going to get a lot of water in the area really quickly, and we needed a place to go. So our community built this brand new school, and above our gym and cafeteria, we have a roof. And so the idea is that we'll get all of our students up, and anybody from the community who needs to get up, they can get up there as well.
Costa Elementary School might seem like a normal school, but look more closely. It's engineered to withstand monster waves. Tsunami vertical evacuation shelters must be able to resist the powerful forces that a tsunami brings. Hydrodynamic, buoyant, hydrostatic, and debris impact forces and strong currents. They're also designed to help people get to safety quickly.
There are 4 big staircases on each corner of the building, and each one of those staircases is 8 feet wide, and we can get the whole school evacuated in about 4.5 minutes.
Everybody should be at a 0.
On the roof of the building, there is water and food and buckets and shelters and tarps and blankets and different things so that we can be up there for 2, 3, maybe 4 days while we wait for rescue.
You can go to the top and you know you'll be safe. It feels really nice to have a special building because you feel protected.
This community decided that a tsunami evacuation center was important because they didn't have anywhere to go, and they decided to use their money to build the building. The additional cost is anywhere between 10 and 20% of the actual building cost itself, and that's really a sound investment for a lot of protection. You may be there a while, but you're safe and you're secure, and that's the most important thing.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Today's ice edge showing during the last week, it's continued to retreat back to the north and northeast here, and probably will, probably there won't be any big changes occurring through or into the weekend, if not through it. So it'll probably be much like this for the next several days. And going on to the marine forecast, still the outer coastline here missing. Good gale force winds linking out that tightening gradient, building high pressure over the northwest territories of Canada. So sustained 35, gust 45 knots for the day Wednesday. Small craft advisories in Stevens Passage, north at 30 knots, sea 6 feet. Clarence Strait, lighter winds there, north at 20 knots. And then for Thursday, winds diminishing in these areas. Lynn Canal down to 25 knots from the north. And for the central southern inner channels here, winds will be north at 20 knots and seas at about 4 feet. Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands and northern Cook Inlet for tomorrow. Light winds, light and variable winds with seas non-existent in northern Cook Inlet, and about 2 feet there for Prince William Sound. North Gulf Coast seas about 8 to 9 feet, so still that qualifies as small craft advisories even with those light winds. Barren Islands seas 10 feet, and southern Cook Inlet variable to southeast breeze at 10 knots, Kamishak Bay west at 15. And then for Thursday, winds increase here. Small craft advisories, Kamishak Bay with building pressure in the Kuskokwim Valley, Bristol Bay. So northwest 25 there. Gale warnings for the Barren Islands, northwest 35 knots. Cook Inlet, north winds 10 to 20 knots. And for Prince William Sound, winds north at 20 knots, seas 3 feet. North winds 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast. And for Kodiak Island, northwest winds 15 knots tomorrow. Light variable winds at 10 knots here. Bristol Bay down the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. Pacific side southeast at about 15. Sitkinak to Castle Cape, variable winds at 10 knots. And then on Thursday, Bristol Bay, northwest winds at 15 knots. North to northwest winds picking up 20 to 30 knots for Kodiak Island. Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula, northeast winds at 15 knots. And for the eastern Aleutians tomorrow, north to northeast winds, 20 knots. Adak and Atka, north winds 20 to 25 knots. And then under an area of high pressure here, Amchitka Island down to variable winds, light variable winds, and then southwest 15 from Kiska to Shimia. For Thursday, western Aleutians here, Kiska to Shimia, east winds at 20 knots. Amchitka Island now northeast winds at 25 knots. Northeasterlies at 25 all the way east to Atka Island for the day on Thursday. Eastern Aleutians, northeast winds 20 knots, sea 6 to 10 feet. For the southwest coast, Yukon Delta coast variable winds, light and variable winds tomorrow, but north at 10 on the Kuskokwim Delta coast, and north at 15 for the Pribilofs, northeast 15 St. Matthew Island, northeast northwest winds for St. Matthew Island, northwest winds for St. Lawrence Island, and west winds for Norton Sound at 20 knots. And then on Thursday, light winds up here for St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound. And for the St. Matthew Island zone, now you have northeast winds of 15 knots, northeast 20 for the Pribilofs, and the southwest coast, light winds out of the north at about 15 knots. For the area from Wales to Cape Beaufort, west-northwest winds tomorrow at 20. Brisk wind advisories for the western Arctic coast, west winds 30 knots, southwest 30-knot winds for the central Arctic coast, and the eastern Beaufort Sea coast winds will be 20 to 25 knots. Then on Thursday, big increase in the winds here, gale warnings there from Kaktovik, Barter Island to Demarcation Point, west at 40 knots there to go along with that winter storm watch for the area, and brisk wind advisories for the central and eastern Arctic coast at 25 to 30 knots, western Arctic coast, west winds at 20 knots, and south winds 10 to 15 knots for the Chukchi Sea. For tonight, weak cold front, maybe some areas of light snow along that boundary here, kind of a mixed precipitation pattern. If it occurs here over the Kuskokwim Delta, and light warm front rains for the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, dry over the interior, increasing winds here for the Panhandle tonight. Those will be falling back tomorrow. With this front pushing into the interior, look for an area of light snow to follow it along with a little bit of upper support there as it squirms over the top of this ridge down to the south, building high pressure out here to the west. On Thursday, builds in over the north slope there as snow retreats off into Canada.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.